Hey, it's Kat. So, when you're working with a moon calendar, one of the other things about working with the moon calendar is working with the moon. So, let's talk about some of the phases of the moon, particularly about full moons and new moons, the two extreme energetics, the most intense energetics, and sort of the most obvious signs because they're 100%, there's fullness, wholeness, or darkness. So with the new moon, which I love the new moon personally, I just find it very energizing. But I've touched on this idea a few times where when you're working with an energy like the moon, which is a bit of a feminine energetic, it's the idea that not everything is the same. So when you're seeing the cycles laid out and seeing how much they aren't the same, and we go from a dramatic, new moon darkness to a bright white full moon, is there something that you can do to honor each of those times, each of those energies? With the new moon, since it is darkness, it's sort of a release from the light, a release from that intensity. The moon's job is actually reflecting back the light of the sun, and it kind of gets a break from that for at least a night, and there's quite a bit of darkness for the night on either side of the new moon too. But particularly there's one night where there's no moon in the sky. And sometimes you can still kind of see where it is because obviously the moon's there, but there's no light on the moon itself that it's reflecting back. So, with that idea, can you bring that to your life in some way? Not be doing, not be shining, not be reflecting anything back. How can you bring this pause to your life, whether it's for a full 24 hours or just for that night, something like that, and bring some intention to that? One of the phrases I learned from my sisters who went through priestess training was this idea of empty presence, being with what is when there's nothing. And I mean, that's such a rarity. Rarely do we actually have nothing. Our minds are always going. That's their job. That's sort of what they do. Um, but how can you kind of cultivate that within yourself? So, one of my dream practices, I'll be honest, I don't do it as regularly as I want, but it's something that I'm trying to cultivate and bring into my life with the new moons, is to create a Sabbath time. And that is a time that is geared totally around recharging. And, of course, this type of practice could be done if it works for you just to have it on the same day of the week, every week, and you want to do it weekly, that's great. But, it's an invitation to go, oh, could I do that? And align that with the energetic of the moon. And maybe it's just once a month and it's on the new moon. And that could be a day where you don't cook or you don't tap into social media. Maybe don't use any electronic devices at all. So no watching movies, no scrolling on the phone, no phone calls, no emails, all of that type of thing, so that you can tune into how to just be. That is a tough thing. Like when I feel like I'm still like, okay, I can meditate, I could read, like have all these different things. And it's like, oh, do I just have this fear that I could be sitting and I might get tired and take a nap? Um, but see how your life is and what the idea of empty presence means to you. And it doesn't have to be grandiose, like saying you'll take a whole day and make it into a Sabbath, although that is such a beautiful practice and has a long history in many different religions and cultures. Um, but that feeling of what does a full reset feel like to you? Because that's how I perceive the new moon, is that it is a bit of a reset. It's just that exhale and then just sitting. It's that pause moment. And so how could you cultivate that on, like I said, maybe it's just the night of the new moon or something, of not stimulating yourself. Maybe, I think of the new moon too as correlating to a little bit more introverted time. So more of those quiet types of practices, and honoring that that darkness. Now it's become really popular for people to set intentions on the new moon. I think it's beautiful to do that in the day or two following the new moon. So on the new moon itself, it's totally fine to do some sort of ritual if you want to connect with the moon in that way, connect with yourself and your spirituality in that way. But it can also be a time to see what comes. You can do a meditation practice of just sitting and listening. Like the new moon is that quiet time. It is that time when you you have exhaled and are waiting for that air to come in, but you just hold it for a moment, and kind of almost build up that desire, see what new thing is there. And we don't have to do any intensity or pressure or anything, but just kind of have that little pause. So how can you create that in your life? So that's what I like to say. Whereas when we get with intentions, our minds can start going. New moons is a great time to tune into some of your lower chakras, deal with just that idea of presence and not having to be doing something at that time. Whereas bringing in an intention is cultivating the idea of wanting to do something, is thinking about the future instead of just being in the present with what is. So that would be my suggestion, just to work on that with the new moons. With the full moons, this is more the extroverted type of energy for most people. Like I said, tune in, see if that's true for you. But it's, that shining bright, what's reflected. It has a bit of wildness about it. Do think of like howling at the moon. Great practice. Feel free to do that. It does feel really cool, and to tap into a bit of that wildness within yourself of like, yes, like there is this heightened feeling. If you read tarot at all, like the moon card, talks so much about the mysteries of walking through a moonlit landscape, and how things just feel and look different. So that can be a beautiful thing to do with the full moon. But it's also this time when you think about the energy of the moon, what it's doing, that it's reflecting back the light of the sun. So I like to work with full moons as a time for reflection. And you can reflect back just over the previous few days since the new moon, or all the way to the previous full moon for the year, whatever length of time is resonant for you to be reflecting on. But it's often I'm a fairly introverted person. So full moons, even though they have heightened energy, I can still do fairly introverted practices. So I can do a bit of journaling and just sitting with that reflection. And you can bring some intention to that reflection, because with the full moon, after it passes, it's going to be waning. So the full moon can be a great time to honor what you've accomplished, what you've done, what things have shown up in your life, what things you want to shine light on, essentially. But also bring that awareness to, is there anything I could release? What's not serving me right now? And so that is a lovely thing to reflect on during the full moon, because then you can either do a spell or some intention, candle work, or work with crystals, whatever it is, of what you want to release. It's wonderful to burn things, safely, but write things down on paper and burn them. That can be lovely to do once the full moon has passed and the moon has started waning, of just like all of those things you want to release, whether they're fears or habits or doubting, whatever things just keep seeming to hang you up. I mean, they can definitely be actual obstacles, but a lot of times those are like internal things. So I try to get into the internal part and then work on releasing that. So the full moon can be a wonderful time for reflection, to get some clarity on that. And, it can also be a great time for doing some wildness, connecting with that wild part of yourself that is so often under our clothes and societal and cultural constructs. I've had friends who loved just bathing out in the moonlight naked. Obviously, they lived kind of rurally, but you can do that even in your house. Maybe you have a skylight or a window and just lay down and where the moonlight can shine on you. And that can be just a lovely practice, or anything to you that sounds a little um, kind of exciting, that the moon is giving you a little bit of this permission to reveal this other side of yourself, a little bit of that kind of, wolf moment of like, yes, like I have to let some of this energy out. So that is a beautiful thing to cultivate with the full moon also, because we need both those introverted kind of withdrawing sort of times and those super extroverted releasing wildness energetic type of times. And that just creates a beautiful sense of balance, acknowledging all the parts of ourselves and giving them a moment, giving them voice, giving them a place of release and acknowledgement, just helping them to be seen as well. And so I love working with the moon for that in that way. So I've mentioned a bit, and the calendar itself mentions also when the moon is waxing. So once we're past the new moon, heading towards the new moon, that is a great time to do um, sort of abundance practices. What you're calling in, as I say here, it's like awakening things. You're bringing in intention. You're calling something in, calling it into you. If you're anything like me, you're like, I can do it all at once. But it really is nice to just go, okay, I'll just work with one thing, maybe a couple of things to call in and to cultivate. And it's nice if you're struggling with that. If there's a lot of things that you're trying to call in all at once, see if there's any connecting underlying energetic, and then work on calling that energetic in and seeing what it unlocks, rather than just going, I really want a new job. Would the new job be opening to receiving or cultivating confidence? Like, what is it they're calling to you? Or just being more magnetic and open to opportunities, that there might be multiple things that you want a new job, you need more money or something like that. There's things, they could be connected. So that is what the waxing moon energetic is really great for, as it's going from dark to light and expanding. And then when it's heading in the other direction, so after the full moon and it's waning, as I mentioned here on the calendar, it's like let go, release, relax. That is a time that can be a beautiful practice to work on any habits that you're wanting to let go of, um, any mental cycles or anything. And you can do this energetically through releasing practices. You can do energetic clearings with like cedar smudge bundles. You can work with crystals. Or you can, literally have these intentions of like, I am going to work on releasing that habit. But it's nice to coordinate with the mystical, the metaphysical, the lunar energies to help support you in that. And you can ask for help with that as well. That's why it's wonderful to practice magic at times. It's just speaking something aloud. It's just going like, okay, and then saying, I am releasing control of this by working with the universe, God, goddess, whatever energies, and how you like to refer to them spiritually. That is a powerful thing to do, is to relax that control of it, which is that energy of the waning moon. The quarter moons, depending where they are, whether they're falling in, the mid-cycle of the waxing moon, that's the first quarter moon, that is a great time for activation. Can align with your values, your goals and intentions, because oftentimes at that time you've gotten a little bit of clarity after setting an intention of what you want to call in. And so it's a great time to focus, like cut down on the distractions for that week leading up to the full moon, and give a little bit of closure to that energy by the time you're at the full moon, and reflect on how it went when you get there. And then with the last quarter moon, so midway through the waning cycle, um, this is definitely a time for surrender, trusting in the process, and seeing what's unfolding, and just to not beat up on yourself if things aren't going the way that you want them to go, of just to, as I said, just to continue to trust in the process and what work, needs to be done. I read this great book by Tasha Silver, and she had these change me prayers where she would often just surrender something up and like help change me into someone who can become aware of what it is I need to change, or can become um, a more open person, that I can get the signs, hear what needs to be done, shift into somebody who is not needing um, this habit, or help me change the underlying patterns. Like, it just felt very freeing to me, of going like, oh yeah, I don't always have to be calling in a specific thing. I can actually just like essentially pray for awareness, help me to clue in on this and to wake up to that level. So that can be a lovely practice for the last quarter moon. So that walks through many of the moon cycles. And I'll also invite you, just when you look at the sky, at the night sky, do you have a favorite moon? Like, I always love it when it's a little tiny sliver and it feels really sharp, and it catches my attention a lot. And I'm like, oh, that's so cool. Like, I love those moons that are right around the new moon. They're so cool looking to me, and it really makes me tingly, and I go, I got to learn how to photograph the moon. That would be the phases that I would really want to capture, but it's gonna be different for you. And I know it's also beautiful. Like, my now husband and I, when our very first date a few years back, was on a totally half moon, and it was the first quarter moon. It was a waxing moon. It was heading towards the full moon, but it was like right in the middle, and you could just see it in the night sky. This like perfect half circle. And so when we notice that moon together in the sky, it feels very special to us. We go, oh my gosh, look, it's our moon. And that means something to us. And I thought that's beautiful, that we met under such a balanced moon, and that balanced energetics, that balance of light and dark, um, and how that mixes in for us, and that we each noticed the moon that night, that it was very mystical and special and stuff. So just tune into the moon, see what phase it is, see if you can tell without consulting your moon calendar. Is it waxing or waning? Are you able to track the light? That one took me a couple of years, where I could look up to the sky and go, oh, it's waxing. I can tell now that it's heading towards the full moon. And just start looking at it and connecting with it, and seeing if there's any natural energies that come up for you. Do you feel more romantic and loving at different times? Do you feel more wild and restless and kind of energetic at certain times? More like kind of quiet and introspective at other times? And just start tuning into those types of things, and use your moon calendar as a reference of connecting certain types of feelings with the cycles, and see if you can break down some of the stories of like, I always need to be upbeat, or this can be a tricky one for parents. I always have to be totally reliable and responsible. And it's like, well, we can have some fluctuations within those types of containers. And, I'm not a parent, but I want to be a reliable and responsible person. I'm in partnership with someone, and the way that I set up my life, but that I don't want that to become a cage where I feel like, ooh, I always have to feel restricted in some way. And it's like, yeah, no, I like going and doing little morning adventures, or having little coffee certain times, or whatever it is, like whatever your crazy and your freaky is. See if you're getting it in there and folding it in every month, and just acknowledging that, of going, yes, I need some of this like quiet me time. I need some of this extroverted me time. You got to get creative with it. I'm recording this during the time of COVID pandemic. So, we've all had to get quite a bit of creativity in our lives with how to not be able to not do everything that we want whenever we want. So tune into that for yourself too, and just know that it's possible, and see if you can mirror that moonness, of like, maybe you have a blue sense of humor or something, and how much do you let it show and when. And there might be other times you feel like more permission to do so, or you watch some of your favorite comedians who swear all the time, but then there's other times where you might be like, oh my gosh, like, and you just need more purity or something. Like, it's interesting. I will observe these things to myself and go, that's totally natural, and that's is a natural rhythm. It's kind of like the moon, that we want to express all of those parts of ourselves so that they are seen, and that you are seen, and they get mirrored back out in the world as well. So hope this connection with the phases serves you well. I find it gives so much permission and is really fun, and just another mystical aspect to life that brings a bit of magic to my life. And I hope it does the same for you. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm here if you need me, and I look forward to seeing you in a future video.